Hello everybody, and my name is Narendra Kumar and we are from NRK Academy. Today we have another story called Subha by Rabindranath Tagore. Let's start the story right away. When the girl was given the name of Subhashini, who could have guessed that she would prove dumb, D-U-M-B, dumb, which means she can't speak. Her two elder sisters were Sukeshini and Suhasini, and for the sake of uniformity, which means similarity, her father named his youngest girl Subhashini. She was called Subha for short. Her two elder sisters had been married with the usual cost and difficulty, and now the youngest daughter lay like a silent weight upon the heart of her parents. Like a silent weight upon the heart of her parents. There's a weight on the heart. It's a pain. All the world seemed to think that because she did not speak, therefore she did not feel. It, which means the world, discussed her future and its own anxiety freely in her presence. She had understood from her earliest childhood that God had sent her like a curse to her father's house. So she withdrew. She got into herself, withdrew herself from ordinary people and tried to live apart, separately. Apart means separately. If only they would all forget her. If only they would all forget her, she felt she could endure it. If people could forget her, she could endure it. Endure, E-N-D-U-R-E, means bear it. But who can forget pain? Night and day her parents' minds were aching on her account. They were feeling bad about her. Especially her mother looked upon her as a deformity in herself. Deformity means crippled. To a mother, a daughter is more closely intimate part of herself than a son can be, and a fault in her is a source of personal shame. Banikantha, Subha's father, loved her rather better than his other daughters. Her mother regarded her with aversion. A-V-E-R-S-I-O-N, means very negative feeling. As a stain, S-T-A-I-N. Something which falls on your clothes, something. That is a stain, or on a wall, something. A stain upon her own body. If Subha lacked speech, she did not lack a pair of large dark eyes, shaded with long lashes, the hair which covers the eyes, and her lips trembled, shook like a leaf in response to any thought that rose in her mind. When we express our thought in words, the medium is not found easily. There must be a process of translation, which is often inexact, not exact, and then we fall into error. But black eyes need no translating. The mind itself throws a shadow upon them. That's what Tagore says. Look at this sentence. But black eyes need no translating. The mind itself throws a shadow upon them. In them, thought opens or shuts, shine forth or goes out in darkness, hangs steadfast, which means stable, like the setting moon, or like the swift, fast and restless, can't be in one place. Lightning illumines all quarters of the sky. They who from birth have had no other speech than the trembling of their lips learn a language of the eyes, endless in expression, deep as the sea, clear as the heavens, wherein play dawn and sunset, light and shadow. The dumb have a lonely grandeur. Look at where Tagore is taking the inner soul of a person who can't speak. A person who can't speak. The dumb have a lonely grandeur, which is extraordinary thing, like nature's own. Wherefore, the other children almost frightened of Subha, and never played with her. She was silent and companionless as noontide. The hamlet, the place where she lived, was Chandipur. Its river, small for a river of Bengal, kept to its narrow bounds like a daughter of the middle class. This busy streak of water never overflowed its banks, but went about its duties as though it were a member of every family in the villages beside it. On either side were houses and banks shaded with trees. So, stepping from her queenly throne, the river goddess became a garden deity. Deity means goddess of each home, and forgetful of herself, performed her task of endless benediction. Blessing. Benediction is blessing with swift, fast, and cheerful foot. Banikanta's house looked out upon the stream. Every hut and stack in the place could be seen by the passing boatmen. I know not if amid means among these signs of worldly wealth, anyone noticed the little girl who, when her work was done, stole away to the waterside and sat there. Stole away means without anybody knowing it, she went away to the waterside and sat there. But here, nature fulfilled her want of speech, fulfilled her her lack. Want is lack of speech, and spoke for her. Nature spoke to her. The murmur of the brook, river, the sound of the river, the murmur, the voice of the village folk, the songs of the boatmen, the crying of the birds and rustle of trees mingled and were one with the trembling of her heart. They became one vast wave of sound which beat upon her restless soul. This murmur and movement of nature were the dumb girl's language. That speech of the dark eyes which the long lashes shaded was the language of the world about her. From the trees where the cicalas chirped, the birds, to the quiet stars, there was nothing but signs and gestures, weeping and sighing. And in the deep mid-noon, when the boatmen and fisher folk had gone to their dinner, when the villagers slept and birds were still, when the ferry boats were idle, when the great busy world stopped in its toil means work, and became suddenly a lonely, awful giant, then beneath the vast, impressive heavens, there were only dumb nature and a dumb girl. You understand? Dumb nature. That's how Tagore writes. Only dumb nature, a nature that doesn't speak in words, and a dumb girl sitting very silent. One under the spreading sunlight, the other where a small tree cast its shadow. But Subha was not altogether without friends. In the stall were two cows, Sarbashi and Panguli. They had never heard their names from her lips, but they knew her footfall. Though she had no words, she murmured, made sounds lovingly, and they understood her gentle murmuring better than all speech. When she fondled them or scolded or coaxed them, made them do something with love, they understood her better than men could do. Subha would come to the shed and throw her arms round Sarbashi's neck. She would rub her cheek against her friend's, and Panguli would turn her great kind eyes and lick her face. The girl paid them 3 regular visits every day, and others that were irregular. Whenever she heard any words that hurt her, she would come to these dumb friends out of due time. It was as though they guessed her anguish of spirit, pain of spirit from her quiet look of sadness. Coming close to her, they would rub their horns softly against her arms and in dumb, puzzled fashion, not knowing, puzzled means confused, fashion, tried to comfort her. Besides these two, there were goats and a kitten, but Subha had not the same equality of friendship with them, though they showed the same attachment. Every time it got a chance, night or day, the kitten would jump into her lap and settle down to sleep, and show its appreciation of an aid to sleep as Subha drew her soft fingers over its neck and back. Subha had a comrade also among the higher animals, and it is hard to say what were the girl's relations with him, for he could speak, and his gift of speech left them without any common language. He was the youngest boy of the Gosains, Pratap by name, an idle fellow. An idle fellow. After long effort, his parents had abandoned the hope that he would ever make his living. Now Losales have this advantage that though their own folk disapprove of them, they are generally popular with everyone else, this kind of a community. Having no work to chain them, no work, they become public property. Just as every town needs an open space where all may breathe, so a village needs two or three gentlemen of leisure, who can give time to all. Then, if you are lazy and want a companion, one is to hand. Pratap's chief ambition was to catch fish. He managed to waste a lot of time this way and might be seen almost any afternoon so employed, like he was doing that. It was thus most often that he met Subha. Whatever he was about, which means whatever he was doing, whatever he was about means whatever he was doing, he liked a companion. And when one is catching fish, a silent companion is best of all. Pratap respected Subha for her taciturnity. Taciturnity means not speaking much. And as everyone called her Subha, he showed his affection by calling her Su. Subha used to sit beneath the tamarind, and Pratap, a little distance off, would cast his line. Pratap took with him a small allowance of beetle, and Subha prepared it for him. And I think that sitting and gazing a long while, she desired ardently, passionately to bring some great help to Pratap, to be of real aid, help, to prove by any means that she was not a useless burden to the world. But there was nothing to do. Then she turned to the Creator above in prayer for some rare power nobody has, that by an astonishing miracle she might startle Pratap into exclaiming, shake him, Pratap into exclaiming, "My, I never dreamt our Su could have done this." She wants him to think that. Only think if Subha had been a water nymph, a fish, she might have risen slowly from the river, bringing the gem of a snake's crown to the landing place. Then Pratap, leaving his paltry fishing, might dive into the lower world and see there on a golden bed in a palace of silver, whom else but dumb little Su, Banikanta's child? Yes, our Su, the only daughter of the king of the shining city of jewels. These are our dreams, but that might not be. It was impossible. Not that anything is really impossible, but Su had been born not into the royal house of Patalpur, but into Banikanta's family, and she knew no means of astonishing the Gozain's boy. Gozain is a caste. Gradually she grew up. Gradually she began to find herself a new inexpressible consciousness. Inexpressible. She can't express it in words. Consciousness, like a tide from the central places of the sea. When the moon is full, swept through her. She saw herself, questioned herself. But no answer came that she could understand. Once upon a time, late on a night of full moon, she slowly opened her door and peeped out timidly, meekly. Nature herself at full moon, like lonely Subha, was looking down on the sleeping earth. Her strong young life beat within her. Joy and sadness filled her being to its brim. She reached the limits even of her own illimitable loneliness, nay, passed beyond them. Became so lonely, her heart was heavy, and she could not speak. At the skirts of this silent, troubled mother, there stood a silent, troubled girl. Mother means Mother Earth. The thought of her marriage filled her parents with an anxious care. Anxious, who will marry her? Anxious means tension. People blamed them and even talked of making them outcasts. They wanted to make them outcasts, send them away from the village. Banikanta was well off. They had fish curry twice daily, and consequently he did not lack enemies because he had money. Then the women interfered and Bunny went away for a few days. Presently he returned and said, "We must go to Calcutta." They got ready to go to this strange country. Subha's heart was heavy with tears, like a mist-wrapped dawn. Full of tears, like a mist-wrapped dawn. Full dawn where fully it's mist. You can't see anything. Fog. With a vague fear that had been gathering for days, she dogged her father, begged her father and mother like a dumb animal. With her large eyes wide open, she scanned their faces as though she wished to learn something. But not a word did they vouchsafe means tell her. One afternoon, in the midst of all this, as Pratap was fishing, he laughed. So then, Sue, they have caught your bridegroom and you're going to be married. So she's getting married. Mind you, don't forget me altogether. Then he turned his mind again to his fish. As a stricken doe looks in the hunter's face, asking in silent agony, "What have I done to you?" So Subha looked at Pratap. That day she sat, no longer beneath her tea. Manikanta, having finished his nap, was smoking in his bedroom when Subha dropped down at his feet and burst out, weeping as she gazed towards him. Manikanta tried to comfort her, and his cheek grew wet with tears, her father's. It was settled that on the morrow, the next day, they should go to Calcutta. Subha went to the cowshed to bid farewell to her childhood's comrades, her friends. She fed them with her hand. She clasped their necks. She looked into their faces, and tears fell fast from the eyes which spoke for her. That night was the 10th of the moon. Subha left her room and flung herself down on her grassy couch beside her dear river. It was as if she threw her arms about earth, her strong, silent mother, and tried to say, "Do not let me leave you, mother. Put your arms about me as I have put mine about you, and hold me fast." One day in a house in Calcutta, Subha's mother dressed her up with great care. She imprisoned her hair, knotting it up in laces. She hung her about with ornaments and did her best to kill her natural beauty. Subha's eyes filled with tears. Her mother, fearing they would grow swollen with weeping, scolded her harshly, but the tears disregarded the scolding, did not listen to. The bridegroom came with a friend to inspect the bride. Her parents were dizzy with anxiety and fear. Dizzy means like they can't, like as if they will faint when they saw the god arrive to select the beast for his sacrifice. The man is a god and the girl is a beast. Behind the stage, the mother called her instructions aloud and increased her daughter's weeping twofold before she sent her into the examiner's presence. The great man, after scanning her a long time, observed, "Not so bad." He took special note of her tears and thought she must have a tender heart. He put it to her credit in the account, arguing that the heart, which today was distressed at leaving her parents, would presently prove a useful possession. Like the oyster's pearls, the child's tears only increased her value, and he made no other comment. The almanac was consulted, and the marriage took place on an auspicious day. Having delivered over their dumb girl into another's hands, Subha's parents returned home. Thank God! Their caste in this and their safety in the next world were assured. The bridegroom's work lay in the west, and shortly after the marriage he took his wife thither, which means that there. In less than 10 days, everyone knew that the bride was dumb. At least if anyone did not, it was not her fault, for she deceived no one. She didn't hide. Her eyes told them everything, though no one understood her. She looked on every hand. She found no speech. She missed the faces, familiar from birth, of those who had understood a dumb girl's language. In her silent heart there sounded an endless, voiceless weeping, which only the searcher of heart could hear. Only those who know how to search the hearts could hear. And that's how the story ends. This is the simple story of a complete looking into the soul without touching it, of what happens to a person who doesn't have a voice but who has a heart, who is just like everybody. Such great stories are written by great authors. I'm sure we all have appreciated it. Thank you so much.